The patterns that we are trying to learn are complex.
Hello, I'm Michael Fiorentino, and you're listening to the Media Renaissance Show. In today's interview, I speak to João Tiago Ascenção about how to think about AI model, the limitations of AI, and also the connections between the Renaissance relating to math and perspective, which is used in art. Also, we speak about ideas about how this future could be optimized so that AI technology can prioritize the planet and our economic systems. João has a lot of other interests in his life, so this should be a fascinating interview. Let's jump right in. Hello, and welcome to the Media Renaissance Show, where we look at the past, present, and future of innovations relating to media and tech. I'm Michael Fiorentino, and today's guest is João Tiago Ascenção, also known as Ascenção. We met during the 1-month PM course focused on AI, which I took last month, and I thought he would be perfect for the show. So welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
What else can I say about your background? You've been working in AI for 12 years.
Yes, it's correct. It's a lot. Typically, I don't reflect too much on it, but yeah, it's been exciting for sure.
What inspired you to have that idea to get into teaching instead of just doing with AI?
I always thought I was going to be a teacher. So my plan was go into research, publish papers, and teach. And that was like the perfect thing. Obviously, then life happened. And I started working and I really fell in love with startups and particularly AI and data science at startups. And I was focused on that. But throughout, I was always involved with teaching in some way or another. So I was one of the founders of the Lisbon Data Science Academy, a nonprofit that teaches data science skills and whatnot. And that was maybe 6 years or 7 years ago. And I was the head of curriculum there. And I was mostly teaching technical skills. And now with the 1-month PM, I am teaching product. And to me, that is the one thing that is really out of the comfort zone for me. Trying to convey the message in a different way, more focused about outcomes, more focused around value, the business side of things. So that to me is the main challenge and my main motivation as well.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of it ends up being theoretical or how to look at things. So one thing you said, always go back to the workflow when you look at the inputs and outputs, and you taught us technically how to do some of that. But you always say, take a step back and look at how this needs to evolve and question your assumptions, which is more college professor than just technical training and saying, do this right now, output this, and I'm going to judge you. You're more like, no, like this is all going to evolve anyway in a few months. So just figure this out, talk to people, collaborate, find the mistakes, and you're never going to stop refining these models.
They are always broken. You always know that the current state of AI is limited and there will always be issues and edge cases and whatnot. And there is an operational side that is super important. So it's not only around having a good model. It's okay, now how do you integrate that into your model? How many times should you run the model? How should you collect feedback? Understanding usage and understanding the operational patterns that can really make or break the product. And that to me is really about collaboration, iteration, and trying to understand what are the positive outcomes for your product, trying to quantify that and going back to, okay, what is the workflow and how can I ensure the positive outcomes for the users?
So in other words, you're smart.
Oh, about that, I am not that sure. I do my best though.
So you just said that AI is always broken. That's kind of a big statement.
But it is. It's not too bad that it is. The main thing being, AI is great at solving problems for which you have a lot of data. But many problems or variations of the problems, you don't really have a lot of data because all you learn is from data. Currently, when you think about AI, there is no conception of the world. There is no model of the world. So all the things that we use to generalize, it's not available to machines. So they learn from data. It's the only way they have to learn. And it's impossible to have examples of every single thing that can happen. That will not happen. So you need to deal with that. And for sure, with the technical capabilities that we have today, the AI will not be perfect. It's okay. You need to be aware of that and you need to manage that appropriately.
Yeah. So one of the things you mentioned during the course was that
this is an example and these are, the features of this particular example. And by the way, this is an example of fraud, or this is an example of a dog or a cat. And that is the expected output. But the transformations and the logic from these features here, we can infer that this is fraud because of this, and this. And the logic it's out of your control because the logic will be inferred from data. And that is for sure one of the key differences.
It's almost like a black box, isn't it? Like we've created the parameters for the AI or machine learning to decide things, but we're not going to be able to see the whole process because it's too many processes. Could you say that better than me?
Logic. I think it's a very complex logic. I think that what you have a lot of patterns that are encoded. The patterns that we are trying to learn are complex. And if they are not, you are better served by a simple rule-based system, right? If you are solving a problem that naturally does not have a lot of variation, go with rules. You don't need AI. And for sure, it is more of a black box. Now, depending on the model that you use, some models will be more of a black box. So if you are using deep learning, like for example, GPT is using, that will be a huge black box. If you are using more explainable models, like tree-based models, you will have some additional, so you will have some explainability. The one thing you will not have is full explainability and full understanding of what's going on. So to a certain extent, there will always be black boxes. And this is why we need processes in place to try to understand what's in there, to try to understand the decisions and to try to explain that to final users. That will not be provided by your model. That will be provided by the things that you are building around it that are as important as the model.
My background's in programmatic advertising, and when I first joined the industry, we were looking at A/B testing versus multivariate testing to show which ad to present to somebody either on a website or in the advertising as they're browsing the internet back when cookie targeting was just being really leveraged. And it was relatively simple. It still was considered a black box of how that decision was done and how complex it was, but you were just pretty much picking out of 20 options and giving someone one that they were 2% more likely to click. And as larger tech industry companies started getting involved with this, it's become more and more opaque, black box opaque. I think that there's like a politically correct way to say that now, or it's changing over time. But the transparency, the honesty of a company saying this is how it's done, I think that's gone away in some ways. But also, it's kind of hard to do. It's just hard to say this is exactly how it works because it's way too complex for us to understand in a conversational tone.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting because now you have complex explainability methods. So you need complex technology to try to understand these models and try to convey meaning and patterns and explanations to the final users. I am an optimist, so I really believe that AI technology is here to stay. And I believe that there is a highly positive potential here. Otherwise, if you are not using AI to achieve positive outcomes, then I really don't know what is the value. So I believe that we can use it, but for that we need all, the different pieces, all the different complements that work with it to ensure positive outcomes for the final user.
Yeah, I think a lot of the concerns people have about AI, besides not knowing exactly how it works and this sort of singularity fear that's happening right now, which I'd love to talk to you about, is that the way that we're seeing the media that surrounds us, that's customized toward us, has influenced how we perceive things and what we see as true when it's really been catered to us and created these bubbles. And then when you have AI, it's kind of assumed that, in the advertising industry, we're going to have a piece of creative and there's going to be thousands of variations and eventually millions of variations potentially to hyper target people. So people want to feel a little more control, or at least knowing that there's some protection here.
I think that people should be in control. I am very, very blunt about that. I think that we need to understand how to develop these systems so that they can augment people, but so that we can keep the people in control. Because you see, when we talk about positive outcomes, these models, they still operate based on association. So if they understand that certain words typically appear together frequently, then there is a relationship between them, and they operate on that type of relationship, association. But they don't have they don't have a definition of what a good, successful outcome is unless you encode that in your system. Machine learning is what we were discussing. So it's a program that, based on the inputs and the outputs, is able to infer the patterns from data and write the code to solve that task for you. So it's about learning from data. It's about being able to generalize the examples, and based on these examples, it will write the code for you. And when we talk about AI, AI is about intelligence, and it's about the ability to solve complicated tasks that require reasoning, creativity, and so on. You can achieve AI in different ways. Machine learning, learning from data, is one of them. But maybe in the future, we will do it differently. Who knows? Machine learning is a subset of AI. And it's a technique that you can use to build AI systems. There are others, and I am sure that others will emerge. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning. There are many types of models. Some of these models, they use neural networks. And neural networks are just a particular type of learning algorithm. It's not that they mimic the brain, because they do not mimic the brain. It's that it's a particular type of algorithm that is what we call a universal approximator. So theoretically, you would be able to approximate any mathematical function with a deep learning model. Complex as it may be, you should be able to approximate it with a deep learning model given enough data. So AI is the big thing, the intelligence. Machine learning is a subset of AI, and deep learning is a subset of machine learning. Large language models are a particular type of model that you can build with deep learning. Deep learning is also a big field at the moment, and you have different types of what we call architectures. So think about deep learning models as a puzzle. You can combine different things together, different types of transformations, mathematical operations, having different paths for different types of data, and then combining everything at the end, different types of pipelines, and so on and so forth. It's a Lego. These particular patterns that we use to assemble the Legos, we call them architectures. Yeah. And a very popular architecture is what we call the transformer architecture. And this transformer architecture is what is being used to power these large language models. So AI, machine learning, deep learning, and large language models are one potential application of deep learning models.
Kind of reminds me of like at the Museum of Natural History, you see how evolution happens and we all come from these fish that grew legs, and then you have some reptiles. So you're saying that this is one species that's coming out of this. Not to give it so much of an organic life comparison, but there is branching off and specialization, and we're all focused on this societal and probably commercial uses for AI, but there could be a whole other branch that comes from AI. What else could it be? Do we know yet?
There are alternatives, but for now, I think this is it. I think that large language models, we are still trying to understand what we can build with that and with the current generation of deep learning. So I think that at least for the time being, deep learning will continue to be the big thing for the future.
So while you were saying that, you looked to the side, and I kind of had the impression that someone behind's like, no, stop, don't tell them, it's a secret.
No, not at all. It's interesting to discuss possibilities, but I think that it's also good to be very concrete. Things have been evolving so fast, during the last few years. So deep learning has been around for maybe a decade, and we have been trying to understand what to build with these architectures. I think that now we are really achieving the maturity stage of these different technologies that we have, understanding what can we build, the improvements that we can make. So for sure, I think that at least the next couple of years will be still about deep learning.
So on a daily basis, when you're working with AI, because you are a teacher, but you're also working in practical ways, what programs are you using? What coding languages?
Most of it, at least for exploration, is Python.
Yeah.
And I think that is the main thing. Now, for production, we may use the microservices and so on. So
whoa. What's a microservice?
Imagine you train a model with all these rules inside, but then you need a service online with the ability to receive a request and then reply to that request. Myself, I've been using Java mostly. So at Stratio, I am currently a VP of AI at Stratio, and we deal with sensor data about vehicles. So every few milliseconds, we are receiving readings from sensors.
Like cars?
Yes, public transportation.
Oh, great.
Mostly.
I love public transportation.
I do love public transportation myself. So as you can imagine, it's quite a lot of data. So mostly on the backend side and processing data and whatnot, we are using Rust and different technologies that are better suited for, very efficient workflows, very efficient transformations. The data scientists and the people developing the models are still the ones that use Python the most.
So if someone wants to get into AI as a product manager or developer, Python is
For
where
sure.
you gotta jump into. How would you recommend that somebody learn Python?
You will find plenty of resources because it's probably the most popular language.
Yeah, data scientists use Python a lot.
Yes, a lot. But you also use it. It's a general programming language, so people also use it for everything that you can do with a programming language. Good resources. The Hitchhiker's Guide to Python is one that I really like. I think it's general. It's not for data science. It's about the language. I think you should start there and then start doing some projects using that, either using Kaggle data sets and competitions and things like that.
So one thing I wanted to talk to you about was you really tried to hammer in the concept of having ethics and making sure that as we were approaching this world that we were doing things the right way. So I'm curious how you feel about the current legislation of AI, how the society thinks about it, and really how the European Union is trying to solve this issue compared to other regions in the world.
A very good question. I am strongly pro regulation. Not generally, but for AI, I am. I think that if you are building things the right way, with explainability, with fairness, making sure that you have everything in place to achieve a good outcome, when it comes to the unit economics, it will be more expensive. Right? And if you have a market that is not regulated, your clients and the buyers, it's very hard to have that kind of information. It's very opaque what's going on. So as a buyer, you don't really know. And the market is not able to provide the right incentives because the incentive is the price. And obviously, companies that are not building things maybe with the same degree of caution, they will be able to put a product out there that is more competitive in terms of price and even in terms of functionality because they will be developing faster. And without regulation, the market is not able to solve that particular issue. So I think that regulation, if properly done, is able to manage the playing field in a better way and to convey the right incentives. I think that at the same time, in this space, we are seeing something super interesting. We see big tech particularly, they were putting together responsible AI teams and they were promoting responsible AI quite a lot. I think the people there, they did amazing work, and a lot of the researchers that I most closely follow, they are or were part of these groups.
I was in the Open Loop AI Council that was managed by Meta, and we learned a lot. It was about like legal liability and how do you deal with the training models and when people start subcontracting and all these deep questions and kind of asking European startups that are AI adjacent or working in AI.
But the thing is, the people doing the work there, I think they are great. I think that at the same time, these big tech companies were using that also to try to bypass and to avoid regulation and external oversight. Look, we are doing things the right way. We have internal teams. We can manage ourselves. We can do internal regulation with these technologies that we are developing. And we don't really need external oversight. So I think it was also a strategy. And it's great that they have these teams, but it's still very opaque. You can see the work that they are doing, but how is that being incorporated into the product? And I think that regulation just makes sure that we are giving importance to the same things and that all the products that you are deploying, they share a certain least common denominator in terms of ethical concerns. With the layoffs and so on, we are seeing that these teams are being quite affected.
Yeah, ethics teams have been just fired completely.
Yes, completely. Let me try to convey my general idea about the way regulation should be made. I believe it should be about the process that you are using to build this product. What are the safeguards that you need? What are the checkpoints that you need? What are the evidence that you need to prove that you are doing things the right process to achieve positive outcomes? So do you have a bias report that you can show that you are evaluating these for different segments and different demographics and ensure that it is part of your process? Are you evaluating your model properly? I don't think we need to be prescriptive about how to do things or what technologies to use, or because when you do that, you also create incentives then for it's very complex. Consultancy firms come in and you will need a consultancy to implement this with you. So it becomes a barrier to entry in the market. You don't want that. But I think it should be process driven and I think it should be outcome driven. That to me would be the ideal thing. I am not a lawyer. I know zero things absolutely zero things about law. As a practitioner, this is where I stand.
How happy are you that you got into AI 12 years ago?
I am super happy. I think I was incredibly lucky. I love everything about it. I am particularly lucky too. It's not only that I got in 12 years ago. It's just, being born at the right time. It's totally crazy, the amount of change. I remember when deep learning models started to become mainstream 10 years ago, doing my first experiments and seeing where we are today in regards to large language models, it still feels unreal to me.
I'd like to relate things to the Renaissance more. So the biggest comparison I see is that the Renaissance is moving from the Dark Ages, medieval times, into this era where we have new technology and people start thinking about the world differently. So I asked ChatGPT what were some comparisons of the Renaissance to what's happening now with AI. And it said that there was the printing press and text recognition. So just how we could output text. Now AI is able to analyze large quantities of text. There's also navigation tools and data analysis. So there was a comparison of saying AI-powered data analysis tools can help us extract insights and patterns from large and complex data sets, leading to better decision making. And the final one was perspective drawing with image recognition. So Renaissance times, you're getting more realistic visuals because of mathematics. Like back here, you can see these aren't straight lines behind me, but an artist can now create that at scale. And so we see that with a lot of these generative AI tools, that there's this creation of lifelike images or things that we're actually not understanding if it's AI generated or human generated. Or the thing I'm noticing is a lot of people like to take their selfies and turn them into Renaissance art. There is an app called Da Vinci where you turn yourself into a Renaissance thing.
Okay, I didn't know about that. The thing for me is Renaissance is all about humanism and all about human agency. And that was the big change. It was not God anymore. So there was this sense of human agency in the world, that we could go about defining our destiny, going about discovering things and creating new things. And I think that currently we look more and more to tools like AI to have more agency. And we are delegating more and more decisions into these systems. And I do wonder whether that comes from a feeling that maybe we are not as rational as we thought we were. Maybe a certain feeling of not being able to deal with the complexity around us. When you truly believe in human agency, there are certain principles that result from that, right? So creating tools and technology to empower people to be more and to create more in the quality of opportunity. All of these things come from a belief that people have potential and you have to develop that. And if you develop that, good things will happen. And I do wonder if this more humanistic strain is a little bit dormant.
Wow. You're saying we're moving from this react, do, be told what to do to saying, no, let's look at the beauty and innovation of life and let's all be creative. And that's the big shift there.
Yes.
Okay, so let's fast forward and say AI is here, AI gets developed. Obviously, it's evolving quickly on a monthly basis now, on a daily basis. The promise of new technology is that we can do less labor, we can do less tedious things. What else do you see as the benefits of AI actually being integrated in an ethical way and how that helps us as a society in the future?
I am a believer in economic growth. I think that if the economy is growing, if we are able to produce more, I think that we are able to increase the size of the pie. We are able to create opportunity. Economic growth is a big driver for humanity. And I think that in terms of productivity, I think that AI can be really something. In terms of automation, in terms of augmenting people and making them more productive.
You're not worried about if we consume more to have a higher gross domestic product, then we're destroying the planet. But you're seeing it where economic growth could be based on a digital economy where we're sharing things that we've created and, assuming that we have a green energy source, that we can have an economy, we can grow, and we can avoid environmental damage.
If you ask me about my optimization function, I think that economic growth is something we should strive for with constraints. I think that there are certain things that are hard constraints. Not killing the planet should be one of them. When we try to optimize for economic growth, we should make sure that the decisions that we are making today do not compromise our ability to achieve economic growth 100 years from now. AI at the moment, I think it's more dangerous than helpful for the environment, because we are talking about a gigantic cost in terms of data and energy and servers. Currently, we live in short cycles. And if we are only considering the economic growth of today, you will optimize for today. But if you consider big enough time horizons, I think that you have incentives that are long-term.
I think that does make sense. Tell me about some other things that you've done in your life, maybe when you were younger or in recent years, that's helped to cross-pollinate your life experience that might have helped with AI or maybe didn't.
I don't know if they help, but I did competition swimming for a long time. I was a swimmer. I still do a lot of exercise. It's great for me because I struggle with attention. It's my personal struggle. Exercise is great to have more focus, so I use it a lot. I do a lot of outdoor stuff. I love bouldering, rock climbing, trekking, and yeah, I need ways to get all of the energy that I have inside myself. I need to get it out somehow. Apart from that, it's interesting because I love mathematics since always. It's a family thing. My mother, she's a math teacher, so is my stepfather, so it's a dinner table discussion. I am really passionate about history and writing, so that intersection, I believe, sort of led me here in a way that I was always too passionate about history and economics and writing to commit to pure mathematics. And I think I arrived here sort of navigating the intersection between these more humanistic interests and mathematics, whichever.
Great. Okay, I wouldn't have guessed that. I guess mathematics I probably could have guessed, but that's really interesting to hear. Any last comments you want to have about the world, future, Renaissance?
I think we have plenty of stuff to discuss in our next discussion. Okay, thank you for the invite, Michael, and see you next week.